Hi, so my name is Stevie McGinn. I am Communications and Engagement Manager at Relate and and this week is Relationships Week, and it's also the week that we as an organisation mark our 75th anniversary. So I've taken the opportunity just to get some colleagues in the room just to chat through some things about relationships and what's affecting them at the minute and how our support services can help people. So I'm just going to ask people to introduce themselves. So if we start with yourself, Vincent.
Okay, my name is Vincent, Dr. Vincent O'Rourke. I'm a psychotherapist, family therapist and clinical supervisor working with Relate. I work with individuals, couples and families.
I'm Lindsay Hassan and I'm a project worker for the Golden Threads project for Relate NI.
I'm Eva Babik, I'm also a Golden Threads project worker.
Brilliant. So if we come to you first, maybe Vincent, there's a lot of external factors at the minute that are probably affecting people's relationships. What are some of the common issues that are coming up in the counselling room at the minute?
I think one of the themes that keeps emerging is time, not having enough time, pressures in time, prioritising time. So time is something that keeps coming up for family time, for individual time, couple time, and particularly for women. I think that is emerging quite strongly, that finding time for yourself as a woman, separate from being a parent, separate from being a partner, having been able to develop your own time without sacrificing yourself. So women are very often sacrificing themselves to maintain relationships, particularly couple relationships, family relationships, wider family relationships. So I think time is one of the major themes that colleagues may feel the same, that organising time, prioritising time and trying to navigate time pressures.
Do you have experience of that personally, or what you're seeing in the project?
Yeah, definitely, but part of it down to communicating as well and getting structure around, chatting to your spouses or the family members and saying, right, when can we do this, when can we sit down and have a chat together, and prioritising that, because you find that whenever you communicate that actually maybe it's not as big as what it is in your head, or somebody can help if it's a case of childcare issues or something like that, and not having enough time to converse with your kids or your family members, sitting down and saying, right, okay, when would you like to talk? When would you like to come together and discuss things, as a relationship and relationships with one another.
Absolutely. That makes sense to me. So obviously, as I said, at this time we're celebrating 75 years of Relate and which is brilliant, and also Relationships Week. So our theme for this week is all about milestones, as you know. So traditionally, success in healthy relationships may have been measured by if you maybe got engaged and married, if you were able to buy a house or have children. And while they are great milestones for people who can continue to celebrate those, are they necessarily still good indicators of success in a relationship, Vincent, do you think?
I think they probably have changed over the 75 years, becoming engaged, becoming married, getting a house. I think they were all kind of indicators many years ago. I think it's different now. I think that partners are looking for something different in their relationship. Yeah, clearly they've got to organise and all of that, but I think there's something interpersonal that couples are looking for, a kind of couple satisfaction, that that marriage or commitment is more than just the establishing of a family and a home, that it has to do with some kind of satisfaction, feeling that you're appreciated in the relationship, feeling that you can find some kind of fulfillment in the relationship. At the end of the day, when you sort of do the ups and downs or the balance, that it's more worthwhile being in this relationship than not being in it. So there's something about the quality of the relationship and the satisfaction that the partners get from that relationship. That may include parenting, and it may include putting a house together, and it may include all of those. But I think it's about the quality, and that has to do about sharing, sort of having sufficient common interests, kind of sharing. So it's about experience. It's having that sense of being related to, being listened to, being understood. I think those are the qualities that people are looking in relationships now, as well as the others.
Yeah, it's that word quality. It's about the relationship quality rather than maybe where you are in the timeline and stuff of that. So Eva, over the coming months, as part of the Golden Threads project, you're going to be delivering workshops in Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon Council area.
Yeah.
So tell us a wee bit about those and what they'll be doing.
So our workshops are free of charge. That's the brilliant thing, and we can actually, serve and help people, individuals, community groups in that area to learn a little bit more how to manage their healthy relationship. And it's the themes of the workshops. They came from our research also, and the themes are really important for like keys for the workshop. So we will talk about managing conflicts. If there is no time to sort in certain things, that is a conflict, unfortunately, because we are not communicating with each other, and then our relationship is falling apart. And that's one of the things we are going to help individuals and groups to learn those skills, which are really happen in any situation. Might be relationship at work, might be relationship with the siblings, resolving conflicts. It's one of the skills you can learn anytime.
I think that's a really important thing to say. I think often people think that the most important relationship is maybe a couple relationship, or that related and as an organisation only work with couples, but you're saying there that healthy relationships with friends and co-workers, they're all important to your mental health, are they?
Absolutely, because we have through the lifespan we have a different relationships on the different levels, not only romantic ones, but also professional ones.
Brilliant. Do you and Lindsay have a good professional relationship working these workshops? I'd say so. So we've discussed there how the relationships are linked to our mental well-being. That's going to be the focus of a lot of your workshops. Something I always wonder is how can we support? There's a lot of information out there about how to support yourself, maybe if you're struggling, as we all do at times. How can we support our loved ones maybe when they're struggling?
So again, communication is a big thing, sitting down talking to them, and maybe Vincent would be better suited to this question than me, but making sure that you're having open conversations with them and giving them the space to do that in, making sure it's not in the middle of Tesco or something, a time when they're free and you aren't exhausted, and sit down and say, right, how are you, what's going on for you, can I help in any way, and just being that ear and listening, having somebody, that relationship with somebody, like you said, it doesn't matter if it's a romantic relationship with your neighbour, whoever, and sitting down and just listening to what they say, and not necessarily offering help, but just even letting them offload can be very helpful for a lot of people, but also letting them know that if you need somebody to go with them for an appointment to community advice or to a women's centre, whatever the case might be, that you can be there to support them through that transition.
And for people who are asking for specific help, or maybe they don't maybe want to do that, you have resources online, don't you, to signpost people to?
Yeah, absolutely. And in our workshops as well, which will be starting in the autumn time, we have at the end of every single workshop a list of various different organisations that will be there to help, 24-hour ones and other ones that quite a broad spectrum actually of organisations out there that can help. So it's just about, even if you just contact one, chances are that one organisation has information for other ones that may be more suited to that situation for that person,
And I know in the online resources there's one that has been downloaded a lot, and people find useful, is the how to argue effectively. Because I think before I worked in Related, I just assumed an argument was a bad thing. But is that the case, Vincent? Sometimes arguing
can clarify. It depends on the intent. If the intent is to clarify, then it's useful. If the intent is to hurt, then it's not. So it's about the intent. But just what Lindsay said earlier on about communication. I mean, I think that is the key to relationships. But communication is more or less kind of in 3 stages. It's about listening to your partner or to your friend or whatever, so that you can so that you can hear, and through that hearing you can understand. So it's kind of at that level. So therefore, for mental health, it is about listening and supporting your partner. It is about a positive affirmation of your partner, trying to help your partner to see what they can do as opposed to what they can't do. And I think also it is important that if, as a couple, where there's a mental health issue that is shared with a couple, that in talking about that, it really should be time limited. Probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum.
So you literally just like set a timer and
Yes,
go, right,
time.
let's go at it.
But we're talking about time pressures. So
Okay.
like the Americans schedule time. So why don't we schedule time? Is what Eva was saying earlier on about scheduling time. So we can schedule time maybe to do that conversation. It's protected, prioritized time, but it's time limited as well. So you're maybe taking 20 minutes, 30 minutes maximum, because that's about as much as you can sustain. Then you can pause it, you can park it, and you can go away, and you can reflect and think about what has taken place. And when you come back the next time, you will have new information to bring into the conversation, so that it doesn't become stale. You know.
And if that's something people find difficult to do themselves, like a relationship therapist is well equipped to help you kind of guide through that conversation.
Well, in a sense, therapy is about that. It's time limited. You don't sit forever with a therapist.
Yeah.
You sit for 50 minutes, if you can fill that. You know. So it's yes, it's time limited. So helping situations are time limited. There you go to see a professional, go to see a solicitor, go to see a doctor, whatever. It's time limited. It's not. Yeah. So and there's a purpose for that. Yeah.
So we've talked so far about different types of relationships. We've talked kind of about romantic relationships and friendships. One of the things that I've noticed is with the cost and living crisis and financial problems, have been a stressor for relationships for a long time. But right now, perhaps some families are missing out on what they would have done for like quality time. So you might not be able to go to the cinema once a month like you maybe used to, or do an activity with the kids over summer holidays, like a summer holiday. So I think that's putting a lot of stresses on parents and their ability to deliver, makes them feel, they want to deliver for their children and stuff. So do you have any ideas on how people can spend quality time or improve their family relationships with, on a budget or without those things?
Yeah, we were talking about this actually just before we came down, that one thing that I find personally is if it's the like of a cinema trip, for example, why not do it at home? Let the curtains close, bit of homemade popcorn, involve the kids if there's kids in the household, or your granny or your auntie or your neighbour, even get the neighbours' kids over now that we can do that, as a community, and sit down and have that fun time together. Get wee packets of sweets from Asda or Pound Shop or wherever, and create that environment, that fun environment together, because that's not just time together as a family unit, possibly community as well, but it's also a fun activity that you're still doing, but it's on a budget. You're not spending £15 per tip, whatever it is right now, which is crazy
and snacks
prices.
and transport and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely.
One kind of milestone, because back to our theme, that happens around this time of year is obviously that children maybe go from primary 7 to first year. That's a big relationship transition. I know relationship transitions is one of the big themes of your project. Maybe other ones are like young people go from school to university, they might go to England or go abroad or something for that. So how do you think that maybe affects family relationships or parents even?
Well, definitely its impact on the both sides, on parents and on students, especially first year, the freshers. They go into to taste the water wherever. It's here, away, but it's away from home. And they going into the different relationships, they have different networking, and they might feel lost at some point because it's something new, it's a new experience for them. but the one of the advice for the fresher is please go and seek Wellbeing student support group, because every single academia now across Northern Ireland and UK, they have that kind of unit to help students with the coping skills with the problems of you really feeling down and going down with the mental well-being. Also for the parents, yes, it's kind of lost because it's change of the role. But then they can find a new role for themselves, and of course staying supportive for your fresher abroad and away from home, but don't be too noisy and do not spend much time on your child social media because it's not healthy for either of you. But then yes, try to find out if you need help, I'm here to help you, and then talk about it openly. What kind of help? How we can find some solution for your problems, and maybe direct to the student support or even GP if there is need for it.
And like it's back to time again, so perhaps then with those relationships kind of changing, it gives you more time to invest in your relationship with yourself. So there's opportunity in it, isn't there, Vincent?
Well, I think that there are life cycle changes. You've mentioned some of them, going from sort of the primary school to secondary school, and there are family life cycle changes. Some one at 18 going off to further education, going to work or uni or whatever. So those are all transitions, and how families and individuals manage those transitions are important. Most people can, but sometimes pressures can make it more difficult. I think one of the most challenging thing for parents is changing their parental approach as the children get older, as children move from the primary school into the secondary school, as they claim more independence and more autonomy, and parents may be challenged by that, and find themselves perhaps interacting with their 13-year-old in the mode of an 8 or 9-year-old. So it's important that parents pay attention to how they are evolving their parental input, their parental guidance of their children. I think another important point is for parents to notice, I think Eva's brought that in, to notice what's happening for the children and not to react to it, but to pay attention to it and to respond to it. So and that's the time factor. It's having time to notice that children, young people are maybe quieter or changing, and then paying attention to that. I think it's quite a nice add-on at the moment, father and daughter. I've seen it on TV,
A TV ad?
Yes, TV ad, and where they're interacting, but their thoughts are coming up as speech marks on the screen, So it's quite good. But it is, and in that instance, the father is trying to attune to the young person. I think she's maybe about 12 or 13. He's trying to tune to her. He's trying to make time. And words don't always, as Lindsay was saying, words don't always make it. It's being attuned, it's listening.
Okay, so respond rather than react. That's really interesting.
Yes.
Very good. Well, listen, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I hope you have. I suppose the final question to ask is then is, do you have any reflections on really a nice 75 years old now? Vincent, you've been here for how many of them?
75 years.
Not another 23, is it?
22 and 23, I can't remember. Well, Relate has gone through quite a lot of life cycles, and in some ways Relate as an entity is very much like what a person goes through and has grown and developed and has now many branches rather than the trunk, which was really marriage guidance. But it's now, and that I suppose still remains the bedrock: relationships, committed relationships, healthy relationships, but there's many branches now. And as Eva was saying there, friendships, work based relationships, all of that is now part of it, because they do impinge on couples and on families. Couples and families are kind of microcosms of what's happening out there in the wider world.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, thank you for taking the time to talk to me, and thank you for anybody who's watching. So if you've enjoyed the conversation, then do let us know in the comments, and we'll do more of these. Otherwise, happy Relationships Week. Thank you for listening.